Hello world, it is Thursday, December 17th, kind of an overcast, cold morning, a little snow on the ground. Makes things kind of look nice, I think, and not so much that it makes driving super hazardous. Today's devotion is entitled Wherever This Water Flows, written by Kenneth Samuel, and Kenneth bases the devotion upon Ezekiel chapter 47, verses 8 and 9, New Living Translation. The waters of this stream will make the salty waters of the Dead Sea fresh and pure. There will be swarms of living things wherever the water of this river flows. Kenneth writes, in the Spirit, the prophet Ezekiel was given a tour of the temple in Jerusalem. At every juncture along the tour, Ezekiel noticed rising water levels coming from underneath the temple at its foundation. When the tour reached an impasse because the rising water had become too deep to walk through, Spirit revealed that the water was actually a river that flowed from the terrible depths into the Dead Sea. And in parentheses, the sea is called dead because its high salt content prevents macroscopic aquatic organisms such as fish and aquatic plants from living in it. But when the river waters that flowed from the temple reached the Dead Sea, the sea's salty waters were made pure, and life was generated in the sea of the dead. In fact, Ezekiel saw life in the water and all along the banks of the river wherein the water flowed. Life was generated wherever the waters emanating from the temple flowed. In this age of post-Christendom, many are questioning the viability of the church. Changing times always call for changing strategies and structures, but certain things remain consistent. A creation parched by egotism and avarice have always needed hydration sources for mental, spiritual, and physical renewal. Ezekiel's vision doesn't point to the temple structure, but to the ever-flowing value of the temple's spiritual foundation. Structures rise and fall, but the things for the love and grace that generates the soul is immutable. And Kenneth's prayer. Lord, help us to see our viability in the eternal flow of your saving grace. Amen. For me, this devotion touches on a number of topics, one of which is that church is not the building. And if any year was to show that, it's this year when we haven't been able to really gather in our building and do much in our building. And I'm hoping that this time away from the building has given us pause to try to reconsider and appreciate what really is the church and how we are to be the church, because it's so much more than just going to a nice worship service on a Sunday. It's actually a way of living in the world and a way of life, and the Sunday morning worship is part of that, but it's not the end all. It's really only the beginning. So I hope that's part of what's coming out of all of this. Because flowing out of the church ought to be the spirituality, the sense of connectedness between all of us within the church and outside the church, and we're really with all of creation. So even, because it is the flow of that Spirit that gives life, as this devotion speaks of, that even though the waters flowed into the Dead Sea, they were fresh, living waters that provided life all along the banks and at the entry into the Dead Sea. So even among the dead, there was life from the Spirit that was flowing from the temple. So the temple, the church, is not a destination. It's a source. So contemplate that. Pray over that. So that when we get back together, we can reimagine and revision what it really means to be the church here in Defiance. Hope you have a good day, and I will try to talk to you again tomorrow.